in a time when the world moved at the pace of horseback and candlelight, when stories were told by firelight and dreams were woven from whispered tales, there lived a love so pure it could calm the wildest heart and settle the most restless mind. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into peaceful slumber, let me carry you back to the ancient forests of England, where legends walked among the oak trees and romance bloomed beneath starlit skies. Close your eyes and feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort, your breathing becoming slower and more rhythmic with each word. The weight of the day is lifting from your shoulders like morning mist rising from a quiet meadow. Tonight, you need not worry about tomorrow's tasks or yesterday's troubles. Tonight, you are simply here, in this moment, ready to be transported to a world where love conquers all and every ending is gentle and kind. In the heart of Sherwood Forest, where ancient oaks stretched their mighty arms toward heaven and streams sang lullabies to sleeping deer, there stood a village unlike any other. Nottingham's people had grown weary under the harsh rule of the sheriff, their spirits dampened by heavy taxes and cruel laws. But hope, like the first green shoots of spring, had begun to bloom in the most unexpected places. The morning sun filtered through the forest canopy, casting dancing shadows on the moss-covered ground as a figure moved silently between the trees. Robin of Locksley, though he had lost his title and lands, had found something far more valuable in these woods. He had found purpose. His bow hung easily at his side, not as a weapon of war, but as a tool of justice, ready to provide for those who had been forgotten by the wealthy and powerful. As Robin made his way through the familiar paths of Sherwood, his thoughts turned, as they often did, to a pair of gentle brown eyes and a smile that could warm the coldest winter day. Maid Marian of Leaford had captured his heart, not through grand gestures or royal decree, but through her kindness to the poor, in her unwavering spirit in the face of injustice. She served in the household of her uncle, a kind man who tried his best to shield her from the sheriff's growing tyranny. But her heart yearned for something more than the safety of castle walls. The forest around Robin seemed to hum with life as squirrels chattered in the branches above and birds called their morning songs. He paused by a familiar stream, watching the clear water dance over smooth stones, and remembered the first time he had seen Marian here. She had been gathering herbs for the castle's healer, her dress the color of spring leaves, her hair catching the sunlight like spun gold. She had looked up as he approached, and in that moment, the entire world had seemed to hold its breath. That was 3 months ago, and since then, they had met in secret whenever Marian could slip away from her duties. Their love had grown slowly, like a flower reaching toward the sun, nurtured by stolen moments and whispered promises. Robin knew that loving her meant accepting the danger that came with their different stations in life. But he also knew that some things were worth any risk. Today, he carried with him a small wooden carving he had spent weeks perfecting by the light of his campfire. It was a robin, of course, its wings spread as if in flight, its tiny beak open in song. He had carved it from a piece of oak that had fallen during the last storm, wood that had once been part of the great tree where they often met. Every curve and line had been smoothed with patient care, and he hoped it would remind Marian of their time together when they were apart. As Robin approached their meeting place, a clearing where wildflowers grew in abundance and an ancient oak provided shelter with its massive trunk, he heard the soft sound of humming carried on the morning breeze. His heart quickened, recognizing the melody as one of Marian's favorites, a gentle tune her mother had sung to her as a child. The song spoke of true love that endured through all seasons, of hearts that remained faithful through the darkest nights and brightest days. Marian sat beneath the oak tree, her back resting against its rough bark, a basket of herbs and flowers beside her. She wore a simple gown of blue wool, practical for her morning tasks, but to Robin, she looked more beautiful than any queen in royal silks. Her dark hair fell in gentle waves over her shoulders, and she had woven small white flowers into the strands, a habit that never failed to make Robin smile. She looked up as he emerged from the trees, and her face lit up with joy, so pure and radiant that Robin felt his breath catch in his throat. This was the moment he lived for, when all the hardships of his outlaw life faded away, and there was nothing in the world but Marian's smile and the love that flowed between them like a river of light. "My lady," Robin said, sweeping into an exaggerated bow that made Marian laugh, the sound like silver bells ringing across the clearing. "I trust the morning finds you well." "Better now that you're here," Marian replied, rising gracefully to her feet. "I was beginning to worry that you had forgotten our meeting." "Forget you?" Robin stepped closer, his voice dropping to a tender whisper. "I would sooner forget to breathe. The sun itself could fail to rise before I would forget a moment with you." Marian's cheeks flushed pink as roses, and she reached out to touch his hand. Her fingers were soft and warm, and Robin marveled at how perfectly they fit with his own, as if they had been created to be joined together. "You have such a way with words," she said softly. "Sometimes I wonder if you practice your speeches in the forest before you come to see me." Robin laughed, a warm, rich sound that seemed to make the very leaves dance with joy. "My words come from my heart, Marian. With you, I need no practice, for everything I feel pours out as naturally as water from a spring." They settled together beneath the oak tree, Marian's head finding its perfect place against Robin's shoulder. The morning sun continued its gentle climb across the sky, painting the clearing in shades of gold and green. Somewhere in the distance, a lark began to sing, its voice pure and sweet, adding its melody to the peaceful symphony of the forest. "I brought you something," Robin said, reaching into the leather pouch at his side. His fingers closed around the small wooden carving, and he felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. "It's nothing grand, but I made it thinking of you." He placed the carved robin in Marian's palm, watching as her eyes widened with wonder. She turned the small figure over in her hands, her fingertips tracing the delicate lines Robin had spent so many hours perfecting. "Robin," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It's beautiful. You carved this yourself?" "Every line," he confirmed, his own voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted you to have something to remember me by when we're apart, something that would remind you that no matter where I am in the forest, my heart remains with you." Marian's eyes filled with tears of joy, and she lifted the carving to her lips, pressing a gentle kiss to the wooden robin's head. "I will treasure it always," she promised, "and whenever I look at it, I'll remember this perfect morning and the man who loves me enough to create beauty with his own hands." The peace of their clearing was suddenly broken by the distant sound of horses' hooves thundering through the forest. Robin's head snapped up, his hand instinctively moving to his bow. The sound grew closer, accompanied by rough voices shouting orders. "The sheriff's men," Marian breathed, her face pale with fear. Robin was on his feet in an instant, pulling Marian up beside him. His mind raced through possibilities as the sound of approaching horses grew louder, the jangle of armor and weapons cutting through the peaceful morning air like a blade through silk. The sheriff's patrol was moving fast, their path taking them dangerously close to the hidden clearing where he and Marian had spent so many precious hours. "This way," Robin whispered, taking Marian's hand and leading her deeper into the forest. They moved quickly but quietly, Robin's knowledge of every root and stone serving them well as they navigated through the undergrowth. Behind them, the sounds of the search party grew more distant, but Robin knew they weren't safe yet. They reached a small cave hidden behind a curtain of trailing ivy, a secret place Robin had discovered years ago during his childhood explorations of Sherwood. The entrance was barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look, and the ivy provided perfect camouflage from prying eyes. "Wait here," Robin murmured, but Marian shook her head firmly. "No," she said, her voice quiet but determined. "We stay together. Whatever happens, we face it together." Robin's heart swelled with admiration for her courage. Even in danger, Marian's spirit shone bright as starlight. He squeezed her hand gently, drawing strength from her presence beside him. They settled in the cool darkness of the cave, listening as the patrol passed nearby. Robin could hear the sheriff's captain barking orders, something about searching every hiding place in this section of the forest. The horses snorted and stamped, their riders clearly frustrated by the dense woodland that made their search so difficult. As they waited in silence, Marian's fingers found the wooden robin in her palm, and she held it close to her heart. The simple gesture filled Robin with such tenderness that he had to resist the urge to pull her into his arms right there in their hiding place. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the sounds of the patrol faded completely. Robin ventured a careful look through the ivy curtain, scanning the forest for any sign of movement. When he was satisfied they were alone, he turned back to Marian with a reassuring smile. "They're gone," he whispered, "but we should wait a little longer to be certain." Marian nodded, settling back against the smooth cave wall. In the dim light filtering through the ivy, she looked like a woodland fairy, ethereal and beautiful beyond words. Robin found himself memorizing every detail of her face, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the gentle curve of her lips, the intelligence that sparkled in her dark eyes. "Robin," she said softly, "I need to tell you something I've been keeping from you." A flutter of concern crossed Robin's features, but he kept his voice gentle. "You can tell me anything, Marian. There are no secrets between us." She took a deep breath, her fingers still clutching the wooden robin. "My uncle has been receiving pressure from the sheriff. He wants to arrange a marriage for me to one of his allies, a man named Sir Roderick of Blackmore." Robin felt as though the ground had shifted beneath him, but he kept his expression calm. "When?" "The negotiations have been going on for weeks. Uncle has been trying to delay, making excuses, but the sheriff grows more insistent. He sees it as a way to bind our family more closely to his cause." Marian's voice trembled slightly. "Uncle doesn't want to force me into anything, but he fears what might happen if he refuses outright." Robin reached out and gently touched her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "We'll find a way, Marian. Love like ours doesn't surrender so easily to the schemes of corrupt men." "But how?" she whispered. "What can we do against the sheriff's power?" Robin was quiet for a moment, his mind working through possibilities. When he spoke, His voice was filled with quiet determination. "There are others in Nottingham who grow tired of the sheriff's tyranny. Good people who remember what justice looks like. Perhaps it's time we reminded them that they're not alone." Marian studied his face in the dim light. "You're talking about rebellion. I'm talking about standing up for what's right," Robin replied. "About protecting the people we love and the values we hold dear. The sheriff rules through fear, but fear melts away when people remember they have something worth fighting for." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside their hidden refuge, the forest continued its eternal dance of life. Birds called to their mates, leaves rustled in the gentle breeze, and somewhere in the distance, a stream babbled its way toward the river. "Tell me about your childhood," Marian said suddenly, wanting to fill the cave with happier thoughts. "Before all this trouble began, what was Robin of Locksley like as a boy?" Robin's face softened with memory, and he settled more comfortably against the cave wall. "I was terrible at sitting still," he began with a chuckle. "My tutors despaired of ever teaching me proper deportment. I much preferred climbing trees to studying Latin, though I managed to learn both eventually. I can picture you now," Marian said with a smile, "scampering up the highest branches while some poor scholar shouted at you from below. My father was surprisingly patient about it. He said the forest would teach me things no book could, and he was right. Every tree, every stream, every hidden path became part of me. I learned where the deer came to drink, where the hawks built their nests, where the sweetest berries grew. The forest was my playground, my school, and my sanctuary, all at once." Marian listened with rapt attention as Robin painted pictures with his words, describing lazy summer afternoons spent fishing in secret pools, winter mornings when the entire world seemed wrapped in crystal, and spring days when the forest floor was carpeted with bluebells and wild garlic. "And what about you?" Robin asked. What dreams filled young Marian's heart? "I wanted to be a healer," she said, without hesitation. "I spent hours with the castle's herb woman, learning which plants could ease pain and which could bring down fever. I thought if I could just learn enough, I could help everyone who suffered. I could make the world a little less harsh, a little more kind." "You still do that," Robin said softly. "Every time you smile at someone in pain, every time you offer comfort to those who have none, you heal something in this broken world." As the afternoon wore on, they shared more stories, more dreams, more quiet laughter. The cave became their own private kingdom, a place where the sheriff's power couldn't reach, and love reigned supreme. They spoke of places they wanted to visit together, of the home they might build someday, in a world where justice prevailed. When Robin judged it safe to emerge, the sun was beginning its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. They made their way back through the forest, taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. At the edge of the woods, where the castle road began, they paused for their farewell. Robin took Marian's hands in his, lifting them to his lips to press gentle kisses to her fingertips. 3 days from now," he said quietly, "there will be a feast at the castle to celebrate the harvest. During the festivities, when everyone is distracted by wine and music, meet me at the old mill by Sherwood's Edge. I have an idea that might give us the future we dream of." Marian nodded, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "I'll be there. But Robin, promise me you'll be careful. If anything happened to you, nothing will happen to me," he assured her, though they both knew he couldn't guarantee such a thing. I have too much to live for now, too much love to protect." They kissed then, soft and lingering, a promise sealed with tenderness. When they finally parted, Marian clutched the wooden robin to her heart and whispered, "Until we meet again." Robin watched her walk away until her blue dress disappeared around a bend in the road, then melted back into the forest that had become his home. As he made his way to the hidden camp where his companions waited, his mind was already working on the plan that would either secure their happiness or doom them all. In her chamber that night, Marian sat by her window, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. The wooden robin rested on the windowsill beside her, its carved wings seeming to flutter in the candlelight. She thought of Robin somewhere in the vast forest, perhaps looking up at these same stars and thinking of her. 3 days seemed like an eternity, but she would wait. Love, she had learned, made even the longest nights bearable when you had something beautiful to dream about. The harvest feast arrived, with all the pageantry the sheriff could muster, though his attempts at grandeur felt hollow to those who remembered better times. Banners hung from the castle walls, musicians played in the great hall, and tables groaned under the weight of food that had been taken from the very people who should have been celebrating their own hard work. Marian moved through the festivities like a ghost, her smile polite but distant, her thoughts fixed on the meeting that awaited her at the old mill. She had spent the past 3 days in careful preparation, gathering supplies she might need and crafting excuses for her absence. Her uncle had noticed her distraction, but attributed it to nerves about the impending marriage negotiations. If only he knew that his niece's heart was already spoken for, claimed by a man who lived free among the trees and fought for justice with every breath. As the evening wore on and wine loosened tongues throughout the hall, Marian quietly slipped away from the celebration. She had changed from her formal gown into a simple dress of forest green, practical for travel and dark enough to blend with the shadows. A hooded cloak completed her disguise, and she carried a small pack containing the few precious belongings she couldn't bear to leave behind. The night air was crisp with the promise of autumn, and overhead, a crescent moon cast just enough light to guide her steps along the familiar path. The old mill had been abandoned for years, its wooden wheel now still and moss-covered, but it remained a landmark that every person in Nottingham knew. As children, she and her cousins had played there during summer visits, never imagining that one day it would serve as the setting for such a momentous meeting. Robin was waiting for her in the shadow of the mill, his bow slung across his shoulder and his face grave with purpose. He stepped forward as she approached, and even in the dim moonlight, she could see the intensity in his eyes. This was not the gentle lover of their afternoon meetings, but Robin the strategist, the leader who had earned the loyalty of men who had lost everything to the sheriff's greed. "Marian," he said softly, reaching for her hands. "I wasn't certain you would come." "Nothing could have kept me away," she replied, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. "Tell me your plan, Robin. What hope do you see for us?" Robin led her to a fallen log where they could sit together, their voices hidden by the gentle sound of water flowing over the mill's ancient stones. "The sheriff's power comes from fear and isolation," he began. "He keeps the people separated, afraid to trust one another, convinced that resistance is hopeless. But what if they knew they weren't alone? What if they saw that even those closest to power were willing to stand against injustice?" Marian felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. You want me to openly defy him. I want you to be the spark that lights a fire of hope in people's hearts," Robin said, his hands tightening around hers. "Your uncle is respected throughout the county. If his niece were to publicly refuse an arranged marriage, if she were to speak out against the sheriff's cruelty, it would give others the courage to find their voices." The magnitude of what he was suggesting settled over them both like morning mist. Marian would be giving up not just her comfortable life, but her safety, her family's protection, perhaps even her life. Yet as she looked into Robin's earnest face, she felt a strange sense of peace descend upon her. "There would be no going back," she said quietly. "None," Robin agreed. "Once you take this step, you'll be marked as a rebel. You'll have to leave everything you've known and trust that we can build something better together." Marian was quiet for a long moment, her fingers unconsciously finding the wooden robin she had tucked into her cloak pocket. The small carving had become her talisman, a reminder that love could create beauty even in the midst of hardship. When she spoke, her voice was clear and determined. "I've been thinking about what you said, about standing up for what's right. I've spent my whole life watching good people suffer, while those in power take more and more. I've told myself I was helpless, that there was nothing someone like me could do to change things. But that was fear talking, not truth." Robin's eyes shone with admiration, and something deeper, a recognition of the courage that had always lived within her, waiting for the right moment to emerge. "And what does truth tell you now? That love isn't just about stolen moments and whispered promises. Real love requires sacrifice. It demands that we protect not just each other, but everyone who can't protect themselves." Marian stood up, her spine straight and her chin lifted with newfound resolve. "I'll do it, Robin. I'll speak out at the wedding ceremony. I'll refuse Sir Roderick publicly and tell everyone exactly why." Robin rose to join her, his heart pounding with a mixture of pride and terror. He had hoped she would agree, but now that she had, the full weight of what they were attempting crashed over him like a wave. They were about to challenge the most powerful man in Nottingham, a man who had crushed rebellion before and wouldn't hesitate to do so again. "There's more," he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I've been meeting with others who share our beliefs. Will Scarlett, who lost his farm to the sheriff's taxes. Little John, whose brother died in the sheriff's dungeons for stealing bread to feed his family. Alan Adale, whose songs of better days have given hope to countless hearts. They're ready to stand with us, but they need to see that resistance is possible." Marian felt a flutter of excitement mixed with fear. The idea that they weren't alone in this fight, that others had been quietly gathering courage and waiting for a sign, filled her with unexpected strength. How many others? More than you might think. Fewer than we'll need, Robin admitted. But enough to start with, enough to show that the sheriff's power isn't absolute, that good people still exist and are willing to fight for what's right. They spent the next hour discussing details, timing, and contingencies. Robin had clearly thought through every aspect of their plan, from the moment Marian would speak out to their escape route through the forest. He had arranged for horses to be waiting at strategic points, supplies hidden in caves throughout Sherwood, and safe houses where sympathizers could provide shelter if needed. As they talked, Marian found herself marveling at the man beside her. She had fallen in love with Robin's gentleness, his humor, his tender way of seeing beauty in simple things. But tonight, she was seeing another side of him, the natural leader who could inspire others to risk everything for a cause greater than themselves. It was a side that made her love him even more deeply, if such a thing were possible. When they had covered every detail they could think of, they sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds around them. An owl called from somewhere in the distance, its voice lonely but somehow comforting. The mill wheel creaked softly in the gentle breeze, a rhythm as old as time itself. "Marian," Robin said suddenly, his voice thick with emotion. "If things go wrong tomorrow, if we don't succeed, I want you to know that these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You've given me something worth fighting for, something worth dying for, if necessary." Marian turned to face him fully, her hands reaching up to frame his face. In the moonlight, his features were sharp and beautiful, carved by determination and softened by love. "Nothing will go wrong," she said with quiet conviction. "We're fighting for truth, Robin, for love and justice and the right of good people to live in peace. How can such a cause fail? Because the world is cruel, and good doesn't always triumph." Robin replied honestly, "Because the sheriff has soldiers and gold, and the power of law, twisted though it may be, on his side. But we have something he doesn't," Marian countered, her voice growing stronger with each word. "We have hope. We have the knowledge that what we're doing is right, and we have each other. That's a kind of power he'll never understand, because he's never loved anything more than himself." They kissed then, long and deep, pouring all their love and fear and hope into that single moment of connection. When they finally parted, both felt calmer, more centered, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. Robin walked her part way back toward the castle, staying in the shadows to avoid any guards who might be patrolling. At their final parting place, he pressed something into her hand, a small leather pouch that clinked softly with the sound of coins. "For afterward," he explained, "whatever happens, you'll need resources. This should be enough to get you far from Nottingham if you need to run." Marian shook her head, trying to give the pouch back. "I won't run, Robin. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Keep it anyway," he insisted gently. "Not because I think you'll run, but because I love you too much to let you face the future without every advantage I can give you." She relented, tucking the pouch safely inside her cloak. "Tomorrow, then," she said, her voice barely audible but filled with determination. "Tomorrow," Robin agreed. "Whatever comes, we'll face it knowing we chose love over fear, justice over comfort. That has to count for something." As Marian made her way back to the castle, she felt as though she were walking through a dream. Everything looked the same as it had a few hours earlier, but she was fundamentally changed. She was no longer Maid Marian of Leaford, dutiful niece, waiting for her fate to be decided by others. She was a woman who had chosen her own path, whatever the consequences might be. Sleep, when it finally came, was filled with vivid dreams of green forests and soaring birds, of crowds of people lifting their voices in songs of freedom, of Robin's hand in hers as they walked toward a future they would build together, one choice at a time. The wooden robin sat on her nightstand, a sentinel keeping watch over her dreams, its carved wings spread wide, as if ready to carry her safely through whatever storms lay ahead. The wedding day dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the tall windows of Nottingham Castle. The great hall had been transformed for the ceremony, with tapestries hanging from the stone walls and fresh rushes scattered across the floor. Servants hurried back and forth, arranging flowers and placing candles in elaborate holders, their movements quick and nervous under the watchful eyes of the sheriff's men. Marian stood in her chamber, gazing at her reflection in the polished metal mirror. The wedding gown her uncle had commissioned was beautiful, made of ivory silk with delicate embroidery in gold thread. It should have made her feel like a princess from the old tales, but instead, it felt like a costume for a play she had no desire to perform in. Her hands trembled slightly as she fastened the wooden robin into the folds of her dress, hidden but close to her heart. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts, and her uncle entered with a grave expression. Lord Geoffrey of Leaford was a kind man who had aged considerably in recent months, the weight of the sheriff's demands taking their toll on his gentle nature. He looked at his niece with eyes full of sorrow and regret. "Marian, my dear," he said softly, closing the door behind him, "I need you to know that if there were any other way, any path that wouldn't put our entire household at risk, I would take it gladly. The sheriff has made it clear that refusal means ruin for our family and everyone who depends on us." Marian turned from the mirror and went to her uncle, taking his weathered hands in her young ones. "I know, Uncle. I know you're doing what you believe is best. You've been more of a father to me than anyone could ask for, and I love you dearly." Something in her tone made Lord Geoffrey study her face more carefully. "You speak as though you're saying goodbye." "Perhaps I am, in a way," Marian replied, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what she was about to do. "Uncle, what would you do if you had the chance to stop injustice, even if it meant sacrificing your own comfort? Marian, what are you thinking? Please don't tell me you're planning something foolish." She squeezed his hands gently. "I'm planning something brave." "There's a difference." Before Lord Geoffrey could respond, another knock came at the door, more insistent this time. A servant's voice called out that the wedding party was assembling in the chapel, and the sheriff was growing impatient. Lord Geoffrey's face went pale, and Marian could see the fear in his eyes, fear of what the sheriff might do if anything went wrong with the ceremony he had orchestrated. "Promise me," her uncle whispered urgently, "that whatever you're planning, you'll remember that you're not just risking your own life. There are others who depend on this arrangement going forward." Marian's heart ached for the impossible position her uncle found himself in, caught between love for his niece and responsibility for so many others. "I promise I'll remember," she said, though they both knew she couldn't promise to change her mind. The chapel was filled with nobles and merchants, all dressed in their finest clothes, all wearing expressions that ranged from bored to anxious. The sheriff sat in the place of honor, his cold eyes surveying the assembled crowd, like a hawk watching for prey. Sir Roderick of Blackmore stood at the altar, a man in his 50s, with a cruel mouth and hands that looked more suited to gripping weapons than holding flowers. As Marian walked slowly down the aisle, her uncle's arm steady beneath her hand, she caught glimpses of faces in the crowd. Some looked sympathetic, others merely curious about the spectacle. But near the back of the chapel, partially hidden in the shadows, she saw familiar figures that made her heart leap with hope. Will Scarlet stood with his arms crossed, his red hair unmistakable even in the dim light. Little John towered over those around him, his massive frame somehow managing to blend into the crowd. And there, near a side door, Alan Adale held his lute casually, as though he were simply there to provide music for the ceremony. Robin's companions had come, just as he had promised. They were here to witness her moment of defiance and to help with whatever came after. The knowledge that she wasn't alone gave Marian the strength to keep walking toward the altar, where Sir Roderick waited with an expression that suggested he was already counting the coins this marriage would bring him. The priest began the ceremony with the traditional words, his voice echoing off the stone walls of the chapel. Marian responded to the early parts of the ritual automatically, her mind focused on the moment that was rapidly approaching. She thought of Robin somewhere in the forest, probably positioned where he could see the chapel windows, waiting for the signal that would tell him whether their plan was proceeding. When the priest reached the portion of the ceremony where he asked if anyone had reason why the marriage should not proceed, the chapel fell into complete silence. This was traditionally a formality, a moment that passed quickly before moving on to the vows. But Marian felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders as she prepared to shatter that silence forever. "I do," she said clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the chapel. A collective gasp rose from the assembled crowd, and Sir Roderick's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. The sheriff half rose from his seat, his hand moving instinctively to his sword. But Marian continued before anyone could stop her. "I object to this marriage because it is built on corruption and fear," she declared, turning to face the crowd instead of the altar. "Sir Roderick seeks not a wife, but a prize to cement his alliance with a man who has brought nothing but suffering to our people. I will not be a pawn in the sheriff's game of power." The chapel erupted into chaos. Some nobles shouted in outrage, others whispered frantically to their neighbors, and the sheriff's guards began moving toward the altar. But Marian wasn't finished. She had come too far to stop now. "People of Nottingham," she called out, her voice rising above the commotion, "how long will we allow ourselves to be crushed under the weight of unjust laws? How long will we watch our neighbors starve while those in power feast? How long will we tell ourselves that we are powerless to change anything?" Lord Geoffrey reached for her arm, his face stricken with terror for what her words would bring down upon them all. But Marian gently pulled away, stepping forward to address the crowd more directly. "I know there are others among you who remember what justice looks like," she continued. "Others who dream of a time when the law protects the innocent instead of enriching the corrupt. You are not alone in your hope for something better." The sheriff finally found his voice, roaring for his guards to seize her. But as the armored men began pushing through the crowd, something unexpected happened. Will Scarlet stepped forward, his hand on his sword hilt, blocking the path of the nearest guard. Little John moved to stand beside him, his massive presence causing several soldiers to hesitate. Alan Adale began playing his lute, the melody of an old song about freedom that many in the crowd recognized. Others in the chapel began to stir, some moving toward the exits in fear, but others standing straighter, as though Marian's words had awakened something in them that had been sleeping too long. A merchant named Thomas, whose shop had been heavily taxed to pay for the sheriff's luxuries, stepped forward to stand with Will and Little John. A widow whose son had been imprisoned for poaching rabbits to feed his family joined them, her face set with quiet determination. Sir Roderick grabbed for Marian's arm, but she twisted away from him with surprising agility. "You'll pay for this humiliation," he snarled. But his words were lost in the growing commotion as more people began choosing sides. The sheriff, realizing that the situation was spiraling beyond his control, drew his sword and pointed it directly at Marian. "Enough!" he bellowed. "This woman has committed treason against the crown, and she'll hang for it before the sun sets." But even as the words left his mouth, a new sound echoed through the chapel, the clear, sweet note of a horn blown 3 times, the signal Robin had arranged. From outside came the sound of hoofbeats and shouts, and through the chapel windows, those near them could see men in forest green, moving with purpose through the castle grounds. The great doors of the chapel burst open, and Robin of Locksley strode in with his bow already nocked and drawn. Behind him came more of his men, their faces grim with determination. The sight of the legendary outlaw in the sheriff's own stronghold sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. "I believe," Robin said, his voice calm but carrying absolute authority, "that the lady has made her feelings quite clear. Perhaps it would be wise to respect her decision." The sheriff's face contorted with rage, but he was calculating enough to realize that the situation had shifted dramatically. He was outnumbered in his own castle, with many of his guards uncertain about whose side they should be on. Some of them had families in the villages that suffered under his rule, and they found themselves reluctant to draw weapons against people who were fighting for their own children's futures. "You dare come here, outlaw?" the sheriff spat, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "I go where justice calls me," Robin replied simply, "and justice calls me to protect the innocent from those who would abuse their power." Marian felt her heart soar as she looked at Robin, standing tall and fearless in the face of overwhelming odds. This was the moment they had planned for, but seeing it unfold in reality was more thrilling and terrifying than she had ever imagined. Sir Roderick, seeing his profitable marriage slipping away, made a desperate lunge for Marian, perhaps thinking to use her as a hostage, but he had underestimated both her agility and her determination. She dodged his grasping hands and in one fluid motion drew a small dagger from the folds of her wedding dress. "Touch me again," she said coldly, "and you'll discover that the women of Leaford are not as helpless as you assume." The sight of the bride threatening her intended groom with a blade was so shocking that even the chaos around them seemed to pause for a moment. Then Alan Adale began to laugh, a rich, joyous sound that somehow made the whole situation seem less like a tragedy and more like the climax of a ballad where good finally triumphs over evil. The laughter was contagious, spreading through those who had chosen to stand with Marian and Robin. Even in the midst of danger, there was something absurdly wonderful about watching the sheriff's carefully laid plans crumble before his eyes. Robin moved closer to Marian, his bow still ready, but his eyes soft with admiration for her courage. "My lady," he said with a slight bow, "might I suggest that this is an excellent time for us to take our leave?" "I thought you'd never ask," Marian replied, her voice sparkling with relief and excitement. Together, they began moving toward the chapel doors, their supporters forming a protective barrier around them. The sheriff shouted orders for his guards to stop them, but many of the soldiers seemed strangely slow to respond. Some were clearly sympathetic to the rebels' cause, while others were simply too stunned by the unprecedented nature of what they were witnessing to react quickly. As they reached the doors, Robin turned back to address the crowd one final time. "People of Nottingham," he called out, "remember this day. Remember that you have the power to choose justice over oppression, courage over fear. We'll be watching from the forest, ready to help any who need it." With that, they were through the doors and racing across the castle courtyard. Horses waited exactly where Robin had promised they would be, held ready by more of his men. Marian gathered up her silk skirts and swung into the saddle with practiced ease, her uncle's lessons in horsemanship serving her well in this moment of escape. Behind them, the castle erupted into complete chaos as the sheriff's remaining loyal guards poured from the chapel in pursuit. But Robin's men had planned their retreat carefully, and the rebels melted away into the streets of Nottingham like morning mist, leaving confusion and shouting in their wake. As they galloped toward the safety of Sherwood Forest, Marian felt the wind whipping through her hair and realized that the elaborate wedding veil had been torn away somewhere during their escape. She didn't mourn its loss. She was racing toward freedom with the man she loved, and the future, uncertain as it might be, belonged entirely to them. To them. And so our tale draws to its gentle close, like evening mist settling over the ancient oaks of Sherwood. Robin and Marian rode into the emerald depths of the forest, their love triumphant over tyranny, their courage lighting the way for all who dared to dream of justice. As sleep takes you now, let their story remind you that true love conquers all fears, that bravery lives in every heart willing to stand for what is right. Rest peacefully, dear dreamer, knowing that somewhere in the whispering woods, their love story continues beneath the watching stars, eternal and serene.